Hey everyone, it's Corey with Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran that started Blue Falcon Board Gaming in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board games, as well as to make games more accessible to the community by hosting and co-hosting free events. Today I get to talk to Jeff Tidball. Jeff, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Corey. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so who's Jeff? Why are we having this interview? What do you do?
I in sixth grade played D&D for the first time. Thought that was nearly the greatest thing that had ever happened. By kind of the next year or so, had decided that I wanted to become a board game designer or become a game designer generally as a grown up, and so kind of just got onto that trajectory. I flirted briefly with the idea of doing music professionally, but that seemed like it was a lot of staying up real late and performing in bars and also not making very much money. So kind of kept on the game design path. Got really fortunate to get a full-time job doing that pretty much right out of college. Um, have left professional gaming forever twice, but wound up back in it both times. And so right now I'm running my own company for the most part, but it's a startup that I'm trying to grow organically without taking any money from anybody else. So I'm also doing freelance consulting and design and things like that, pretty much all in the game industry all at the same time. So I've been around to lots of different places, worked at lots of different companies, worked at Atlas and Fantasy Flight, freelanced for places like Green Ronin and Alderac Entertainment, and just tons of different places. I was on the Gamma board for a while. I really believe in that organization. I think um, one of our biggest things that we were able to do there is open Gamma up so that instead of only having publishers as full members of that, now there are 6 different divisions. So creators can be full members, distributors, retailers. There's an event thing. Gamma is the game manufacturers organization for anybody who's watching that doesn't know that. That's basically the trade organization for tabletop game professionals. And now it's kind of for anybody who's a tabletop game professional, not just publishers. So been around a lot.
Yeah, and Gamma's really big into the planning of origins, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, Gamma owns Origins and is basically that is a big chunk of its annual revenue is operating that public show. The other thing that it does to earn a lot of its operating budget is to run Gamma Expo, which is like a non-public trade show essentially for publishers and retailers are the people who get the most benefit out of it. Publishers use it to promote products to retail stores. There's lots of like media folks and journalists there, and distributors are there. Some distributors will like exhibit there because their retail clients are there. But really, I think that the biggest people who get benefit out of that show are publishers and retail stores.
Yeah, so you currently have Prolific Games and Left Justified Studios. Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about what those two companies do and how they are separate entities but kind of under the
Yeah,
same umbrella?
Yeah, for sure. So, Left Justified LLC was just the name of the company that I formed when I left Fantasy Flight Games in 2009, because I just wanted to do freelance design essentially. But for tax purposes and liability purposes, it seemed wise to form a company to do that. So I formed that then and did design and consulting and development and things like that for gosh maybe 5 or 6 years there, and then that company just kind of laid there for a while and filed taxes and did not do a lot while I was off doing some other things outside the game business. But during the pandemic, I kind of decided that I would really like to be publishing some games on my own. I had been back to working with Atlas, and those are all really fantastic people, but we kind of just had gotten tired of having a boss who was able to tell me which games we should or shouldn't do. They listened to me a lot, but not always. So I resurrected that Left Justified brand, put a studio on the end of it, and then used that to start licensing some games from designers that would eventually come out. Around that time, the guys who founded Prolific Games, who are local to me here in Minnesota and who I've known for a long time, got in touch because they were just not interested in doing that anymore. Both of those guys have other full-time things in their lives. And so we got to talking about it. And one of the best ways to get a small company, a small publishing company, kind of to accelerate its growth is to just grow its catalog as fast as possible so that you can start to get stores to pay greater attention to you, so you can get distributors to pay greater attention to you, just so that the same stuff that you've got to do every day anyway has the chance to just be as wide as possible. So I bought, long story short, I bought Prolific Games from them. That came with a catalog of about 6 titles. So I went from 1 or 2 to 7 or 8 or 9, kind of within the course of 2 or 3 months. Acquired their, customer mailing lists and things like that. So that was a nice lever to grow that kind of business. The most popular game that Prolific Games has done is a game called Flapjacks and Sasquatches, which is a very, very take that style game with pretty light mechanics. It's very fast playing. It's really, really popular, but it feels a lot different from the other games that we were working on under the Left Justified Studio brand, which are more sort of mechanically intensive and more gamery. They're not like deep. We're not talking about old school war games, or these are not 4-hour games. Our first one is called Broken and Beautiful. It's a pretty simple set collection and drafting game. It plays in 10 or 15 minutes, but it's just more, I don't know, more gamery. So it seemed like it was sensible to keep those two brands separate, just so nobody was ever confused about what they were going to get when they opened the box. So for the moment, we've got this kind of unwieldy Left Justified Studio and Prolific Games company name that we put on everything, because it's useful to have the big catalog when you are, building a website. We don't have to build 2 separate websites. We don't have to communicate with distributors as 2 separate companies. But we do want to make sure that people understand what they're getting when they buy one of those games or the other. So for the moment, we've got 2 separate brands. I don't know if that'll be true always, but that's what's going on with that company.
Yeah, the Broken and Beautiful actually got to play at Geekway this year. Josh over at Meeple House Games, he had brought it with him. I believe he picked it up at, oh gosh, maybe Dice Tower
Uh-huh.
West, potentially. That might have been where it was, but he had picked it up and brought it. And then we sat down with Jamie Stegmeyer from Stonemeyer Games and Paul Solomon, who did Honey Buzz. And then he's
Oh, right
also
on.
done games with, Genius Games and stuff like that. We played, they were like, hey, we got like 30 minutes. Let's knock something out. And Josh was like, oh, I've got the perfect little game for that. So we got there and we played about 2 rounds of it. So yeah, I
That's
mean that
fantastic.
10 to 15 minute time frame, that seems pretty reasonable because that's about what we did. We got about 2 games of it in about 30, 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, I was out at Dice Tower West. I probably sold it to him myself.
Nice. Yeah, he brought a bunch of games back from there, and then he also brought. I think he got a lot from Geekway this year too,
I have
which
been out to
is hard
Geekway
on him
one
because he
time.
has to fly.
Uh-huh. I think I
Yeah.
think I may go back to Geekway again this year. One of my, actually the co-designer on one of our upcoming games, Jay Little, who worked for Fantasy Flight with me for a while. He was one of the founders of Geekway, so he is a really, really big booster of that convention. I always see his excited posts on Facebook when he is headed down there every year.
So it's definitely my favorite convention. Like I'll drive the 8.5, 9 hours to get there in
Do
a
you
heartbeat.
know? So I assume you must know lots of people who are there.
Not really. So the
Not
very
really?
first year that I went, yeah, the very first year that I went was 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2022. That was the very first year I went. My wife went with me, but she is not a board gamer at all. I can occasionally get her to agree to play to something. So I went just because Jamie, he was always talking it up during his weekly Stonemaier live cast and stuff. So I was like, all right, first convention, I'm going to make the trip of it. So we made a weekend trip out of it. And she was like, look, I'll go with you, but like I'm staying in the hotel room 90% of the time. Like you go do your nerd stuff and then come get me for food and we'll find some stuff to do in between. And I was like, okay, cool. So I get there and I'm like, man, I don't know anybody here. I'm, I'm super like introverted and stuff. I'm like, I just spent all this money just to sit at a table to not play any games. Nothing like that at all. You can't walk past a table at Geekway without somebody being like, hey, we need a third, or hey, we need a fourth. You want to
Uh-huh.
jump in? So I ended up playing a ton of games while I was there, met a ton of people. That's where I actually met Josh at. And then me and Josh actually stayed in contact afterwards. I mean, we talk almost daily now. But he's flown to Ohio from Colorado, and we, got some of the cabins up at the Ravenwood Castle in Ohio, and we did like a big game weekend with like a group of like 15 of us. But then again, this year we planned planned out our hotel, and we're like, hey, we're going to split this room. Here's our walking distance, all of that. So Geekway was fantastic.
That's great. Well, the time that I went, I was living in Kansas City at the time and went with two other families. We all brought basically all our entire families. Um, and so we had kind of a built in group of 10 or 12 people to play games with. But that was the thing that struck me about it, is that it looked like it might be a convention that would be very lonely for an introvert. So it was not one that looked like I ought to really prioritize going by myself. But so maybe it was the fact that I had come with a relatively small group of people that I know that kind of prevented me from getting involved in any of those opportunities to just jump in with people that I did not have any experience with. Now, I guess I should say that it was also my experience that it was relatively easy to find people. I was playtesting a design that I've been working on for a long time called Grab Strike, and it was relatively simple to just find some people walking by and sit them down, and get them interested in trying that. So that's great that that was the experience. Like I said, I think I may go back this year, although probably I'll be exhibiting this year if I go. But I do remember it being a really nice environment. Everybody's really enthusiastic. Really nice, really good stuff.
Yeah, and I think last year may have been the first time that they did it. But they've got a like a Meeple meetup type app, and you can download it, enter the convention code, and then you can just see all the games that people have posted. You can make your own games, and post it, but you can just be like, hey, I need 4 people at this time. They've got letters and numbers and stuff on all of the tables, and it's like, hey, I need 4 people at B17 or whatever at this time, and people will just sign up. You can message each other back and forth on there, so it made it super easy to find a game. I don't think there
That
was ever a time where I was just walking around like, well, I ain't got nothing to do. Like I could always find a game, and that was just with me by myself.
uh-huh. I love that as an app for an environment like that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I really like it too, just because it seems like everyone's there to play games versus with Gen Con or Origins. Whenever I went, it was just like, hey, here's the new shiny, and it didn't feel like I was playing a lot of games. It was just like, hey, I get to buy all the new cool stuff, and I would rather go somewhere for 4 days, 3 days, whatever, and just hey, we're gonna game until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then go to bed, and then get up and do it all again.
Right. So it's interesting because as a like my experience of Gen Con these days is so much different than it was before I was professionally involved. I came up through role playing essentially. So I went to Gen Con for years and years and years and would go into the exhibit hall and maybe buy some stuff. But I would just play RPGs for 12 or 16 hours a day when I went as a middle school or a high school, a college student. And a lot of the friends that I have from those days who are role players who are still going, still kind of have that experience. They'll maybe go into the exhibit hall one time, but for the most part, they will show up at a game at 8 or 10 in the morning, move to a different one every 2 or 4 hours, and essentially just game their entire way through that convention. So it's interesting how different people's experiences of the same convention can be so different. Because I definitely could not. I don't think that I can role play for 16 hours in the same day anymore. In fact, I'm nearly positive I cannot.
Yeah. So, do you prefer RPGs or do you prefer board games, or has that changed throughout your lifetime?
It has definitely changed throughout my lifetime. Role playing games were a huge part of growing up for me and were a huge part of where I was at in the first part of my career. So when I started out at Atlas Games, I essentially did odd jobs for the first year or two of that, but wound up as the line developer for the Ars Magica role-playing game. So that was essentially what I did for 3 years, is worked on Ars Magica supplements. And in the first time I left gaming forever in 99, going on to 2000, it looked to me like role playing in tabletop space was just going to stop existing because World of Warcraft was completely new. Everybody was extremely excited about being able to play a massively multiplayer game online. And I just could not see how tabletop role playing was going to survive that. And so I still desperately wanted to be able to make things up for a living. So I decided to go to film school and try to learn about that, become a screenwriter, and get into filmmaking. So that was kind of a pivot away from role playing. And obviously role playing did not go anywhere. D&D is many times bigger now than it has ever been. But I kind of, board games were also growing in kind of the mid-aughts. And so it looked to me like also that was going to be just a better place to have more career stability. So I did not come out of any kind of like deep knowledge or training in how to design board games or card games, but it just over the course of years tried to kind of turn my mind to that, learn about it as I could, self-educate, design games, try them out, see how they went. So just kind of went that way because it looked like it was probably a better career path for the way the industry was going. And so that's I should say that's pretty much all I do now. The last time I played a role-playing game was not recent, for sure.
Yeah, I always joke that like the tabletop RPGs are just too chaotic for me. Like if
Yeah,
I'm sitting down to play a game, like I just want everybody to be like, "Hey, these are our rules for the next hour. We're all agreeing to abide by it," and not just have like this big sandboxy thing. Because it's like it's crazy to me that real life we trust other people to drive 70, 80 miles per hour and stay within their white lines. So let alone like, hey, I'm going to trust you to stay within whatever guidelines in this RPG.
right.
Because I did uh, a few scenarios for Call of Cthulhu and everything with some of my buddies, and then I talked about like running Curse of Strahd for D&D Fifth Edition. And right away, my one buddy's like, I gave him like 300 gold or 500 gold or something to start out with, and I'm like, all right, like build your character. Here's all your stuff. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna roll up with an elephant. I'm like, dude, if you're just going to be chaotic from the get go, like I'm not going to do this. Like, why would you roll up on a elephant into Barovia? Like, that's not. He's like, oh well, I'll just do that and have all of these little gasoline potion things. I'm like, I will tell you right now, I will TPK you at the very beginning of the session. Like, something is going to hit that, catch it on fire, and you are all going to die and have to re-roll characters.
Right.
So it's not. I've enjoyed every time I've played RPGs and stuff, but it's not my jam if I have to choose between it or board games.
One of the things that as the indie RPG movement really kind of grew up, I felt like one of the like common criticisms of traditional RPGs was that a session of D&D was 20 minutes of fun packed into 4 hours, that just you spent so much time in a D&D game like going to the other room to get pizza or rolling initiative or just doing BS all the time, that you wound up having 15 or 20 minutes of fun, but it took you all night. And there were a lot of really good, very hyper focused games that sort of came out of that realization. RPGs that, you can play a full session of in 60 or 70 or 90 minutes or whatever. And there have been a lot of really, really good additions to the culture and to kind of the art form. A lot of them, I don't think, really lend themselves to campaign play. People will come and like fight me and argue with me and drag me off and throw me in a well for saying such a thing. Because there's people who are really huge fans of that style. But the other thing, like as I get older, I find that when I get together with friends, I would really also just like to be able to talk to them about normal life stuff. And that kills your RPG. You just can't possibly do that. That's one of the things that lends itself to only having 20 minutes of fun in 4 hours, is that, you're friends and you have not seen each other all week and you want to find out what happened at work and what's going on with your kids and just all of that stuff. But that's just not really a barrier while you were playing a board game. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. So just where I'm at with my life, board and card games, especially more casual stuff. Like, I guess probably you cannot go sit in a Magic tournament and talk to people about what is up in their lives. But like, that is, again, that's basically a completely different hobby from the way that I observe it. So the casual board and card, or even deeper board and card stuff that's more complicated, you can just do other stuff at the same time, which is usually where I'm at these days when I'm playing a game.
Yeah. So on top of Left Justified Studios and Prolific Games, you're also a co-founder of Game Playwright. Do you want to talk about what Game Playwright does as well?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting time to talk about Game Playwright, because actually my partner Will and I are just in the process of selling that company to Pelgrane Press. We founded that company, gosh, more than 10 years ago, I think. I think more than 10 years ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. But with the idea that we really wanted to write about we wanted to write about games and about stories and write about the work of making them. There was not very much, there's more nonfiction about that now. There was some nonfiction about that then, but really not very much. And so originally we thought we were going to do like a ton of blogging. And that was just like a pace of that the two of us found really difficult to keep up on. But the thing that really sort of stuck is that we um, uh, originally wrote, our first game was called Things We Think About Games. That was inspired by another series of books. I think the first one of them was called like 101 Things About Architecture or something like that. Really interesting books. Anyway, we wrote a Things We Think About Games kind of based on that template. We did a book of essays called The Bones, which is about dice, but it's not actually about dice. It's about our experience, like, of life and of gaming, but kind of told through the lens of dice. So we got lots of great people to contribute to that. Will edited that one. And then we have ended up doing seven different books over the course of the time that the company's been around. We did The White Box in collaboration with Atlas Games. That was a really interesting project in that we did not think we could possibly do that as essentially a small print-on-demand outfit, but managed to put together a deal with Atlas in order to kind of split that project up and get it done. And that's one of the most successful independent projects that I think I've ever been a part of, in part because it was not clear at all that game could possibly succeed. We kickstarted it, and I thought there was a 50-50 chance that it would fail to raise like the $6,000 or so that it would take even to print some of it. But it wound up raising almost $130,000 just based on the fact that there turned out to be so many people who were interested in learning about the process of making board games. I guess I did not give any kind of an introduction to what the White Box is. This is essentially a boxed game-like product that includes a ton of generic components. So it's got meeples and cubes and dice and things like that. Some printed components. So it's got a couple of sheets of punchboard. Some of the punchboard tokens are blank. Some of them like have sets of numbers or whatever on them. So it's kind of a toolkit for prototyping a game. But then it's also got a book inside it called the White Box Essays, which is 25 or so different chapters on subjects of game design. So about how to come up with ideas, how to avoid your ideas getting stolen, how to research a factory, how to hire an artist, all kinds of different things like that. And like I said, when we launched that on Kickstarter, I thought that it was entirely possible no one would be at all interested in that. And it turned out I was just completely wrong about that. And it really, really took off. Lots of people were hugely excited about it. I wound up getting invited to Essen to speak there based on people who had reached out because they saw this Kickstarter. It was really fantastic. So that was the Game Playwright project that really, really did well. But we've got, other books that have sold over a really long period of time too. Friendly Local Game Store is one. Uh, Gary Ray writes Quest for Fun, which is, I think, surely the most widely read blog on running a retail game store. He's been doing that for years and years and years. He popped up on Facebook one day and he was like, maybe I think I might want to collect a whole bunch of these blog posts into a book. Would anybody care about that? And I was like, and not only would I care about that, I would like to publish it. So we got together with Gary and I edited that book. And that's been really, really successful. That continues to sell. I think it's 6 or 7 years later. Hamlet's Hit Points is another one. And it was kind of the same situation. Robin D. Laws is a really, really prolific, for years and years and years, author of role-playing books. And he was doing a series on his live journal, if you believe that. So this was back literally at the times of the Roman Empire. And he had developed this system for kind of documenting the ups and downs of a narrative. And so he had done, I think, an analysis of Hamlet according to this system of like 9 different kinds of scenes and rising and falling action. He got done with that and he was like, well, that was fun. And I was like, that thing that you just made there, that's maybe a book, Robin. And so reached out and we talked about that. And he was interested in documenting that for that purpose. And he added 2 additional works onto that. So Hamlet's Hit Points includes that analysis of Hamlet, but also Dr. No and Casablanca lays out the system for analyzing those things, especially in terms of how you'd use them in a role-playing game. And so that's another one that we did at Game Playwright that has just been real successful over time. At this point, though, in terms of the company's life, Game Playwright is like, it's a very, very modestly sized company, and kind of the nature of inflation is such that things like our bill for tax prep every year have slowly outstripped the ability of those books to like make it reasonable to operate that business. We're not looking, it's really stupid because all those books are profitable. They can make money going forward, but neither one of us is enthusiastic about the process of doing bookkeeping and accounting and filing taxes and doing distribution. And that's kind of what that business has mostly become. So we just talked to each other a little bit and decided that there was no sense just like shutting it down. But we were really excited to find out that the folks at Pelgrane, who we have known for a really, really long time, they're the publishers of 13 Age and Trail of Cthulhu and lots of other different stuff. Lots of stuff by Robin Laws, so it's a pretty natural fit with Hamlet's Hit Points. So anyway, they were interested in taking that catalog over. So as of the 1st of January, give or take, Game Playwright will be an imprint of Pelgrane Press rather than something that Will and I are running.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm definitely going to want to check out the white box essays. I've been working on my own game design and everything, and hope to have everything to Kickstarter early next year. I'm actually hoping to launch the week of Geekway. That way I can kind of really show it off during Geekway. But I've just been trying to take in so much different of, game design books and videos and blog posts and stuff. So that was definitely going to go on my list to pick up and to read.
That's cool. Well, how is your process going?
It's been a process.
Really?
So whenever I started, it was back in February, and I was like, I think I'm going to make a game. I could do that. So started working on it. Had no clue what I was diving into. It's been fun. It's been really fun. I've had about 118 different people play tested in person so far. I've got really good feedback. Everyone seemed like they've enjoyed it for the most part. Some of the cool moments was like I was at Lexicon and I was showing it off, and I didn't tell people like, hey, I designed this game and I'm playtesting. It was just, hey, I'm doing a demo of this game. Do you guys want to try it? So they tried it, and as they were doing the end of game scoring, one guy was like, can I buy this? Like, is this available somewhere? And I was like, dude, you just made my day. Like, that's made the past few months of me stressing out and staying up super late so worth it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's I actually had just got a message from the artist right before we jumped on here for me to look at the rule book layout and everything. So it's coming along. I've got my quote and all of that stuff from the manufacturer. I've been working with the artist. She's almost done with all the artwork. Once I get all of the art assets, I've been talking with a board game arena developer to get it on board, to get it onto BGA.
Uh-huh.
That way, hopefully build some sort of community around it, some interest around it, and then once it goes to Kickstarter, already have that community interested. Like, hey, if you want a physical version, here you go. And then on the Kickstarter, just have that BGA link of, hey, if you want to try this before you commit to it and put your money on it, like you can try it out and see if it's a game for you or not.
Yep. I don't know if it built a lot of um community for Broken and Beautiful to have it on the Sovereignty platform, but it did. Like, one anecdote that I do have about that is the company that is going to be the German localizer of that Board Game Circus saw that the Kickstarter was on, but the fact that they could try it on Sovereignty is what sort of sold them on it. The fact that they could try it out and see how they liked it, as opposed to just either guessing or waiting and see till it actually came out in physical format before they decided if that was a project that they wanted to do in German. So I do think that I mean, especially as time goes on and people are more and more and more comfortable playing a tabletop game on a digital platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super light family weight entry style game, so it's nothing too crazy. Because whenever I reached out to the BGA developer, I found a bunch of games that I enjoyed playing, and I started looking to see who did the BGA implementation of it, and like the same dude kept popping up on a lot of the ones that I really enjoyed. So I just shot him an email, and he was like, "Yeah, roughly it can be anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 depending on how complicated the rule set is and all of that." So I shot him my rule book, and he was like, "Oh, dude, you're on the low end. You're looking at like 12, 1,500 maybe." I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Okay, cool. As long as it wasn't like that 10,000 range."
Right.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But which, speaking of, you'd mentioned that you'd have another Kickstarter that's coming up that there's not a ton of info out about yet. Do you want to give anybody a sneak peek about that?
Yeah, so the game is called Jewels for the Emperor Penguin. The Kickstarter is going to launch on January 16th. And so, interestingly, this is actually the very first game that I licensed, um, as I was starting to plan to spin Left Justified Studio up into a new company. So that is kind of where it started. I think this is maybe even back in late 2018. Shane Carr is the name of the designer. He lives out in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my friend Seppi Yoon had been out at KublaCon where they had a Protospiel event, and Shane was pitching this game around. Seppi played it and thought it looked pretty good. So he came back and told me he thought I ought to have a look at it because he knew that I was looking at stuff to do. At that point, the game was called Ruby Hunters. It was about sailing pirate ships out into an archipelago of islands to get treasure. We've developed this game a lot. Lots has changed about it mechanically, but thematically now, like I said, it's called Jewels for the Emperor Penguin, and the idea is that the Emperor Penguin lives in this icy valley, and he really, really loves jewelry. And so, as one of the penguin guilds, the thing that you've got to do is climb these icy walls that make up the sides of the valley, collecting gems. There's an economy of gems, 4 different gems. So there's rubies and emeralds and sapphires and diamonds. There are the different hexes that you can go to, will either let you collect those or trade them at different exchange rates. Use those to buy jewelry cards, which is how you get victory points. So when the game ends, it's an economic game, trading gems, trying to get those jewelry cards. It's a lightweight family style game. If I was going to say it was similar to something that exists already, this is maybe similar to Splendor, except that it has a kind of a spatial element about it. There's a board of hex style shapes that your little penguin team is actually moving around on, as opposed to just a tableau of cards that you're choosing from.
Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, there's not a ton of I can't think of a ton of like penguin themed games. Whether
So
it's
it's
fun,
funny.
like fun style, or like more educational. Like I don't there's not a ton of penguins out there.
Well, so that is what I would have said. And we almost didn't do penguins because I was like, all right, we're going to go ahead with penguins. But then I was like, maybe I should see how much penguin stuff there is. So I typed penguins into Board Game Geek, and there's like 3 complete pages full of penguin games. So more than you would think. But on the other hand, like a lot of them are old, and a lot of them do not come to mind. Ice Cool comes to mind. Mayfair, I think, did a game that maybe was literally called Penguins, but it seems like it works. The characters are all real cute. The meeples are just adorable. Chip Cole at Matt Paquette Designs, who is doing the graphic design on this game, did the meeple designs for us, and they are just hilarious. And we adapted one of the penguins that's on the cover. We're trying to get a plush done right at the moment. This will be the first time I've ever done plushes. It might totally not work. The quotes look like they're going to be survivable. So right at the moment, I'm waiting to see what the factory's like first prototype of this plush penguin looks like. He's like this climbing penguin with his backpack on, and then he's got like a little ear flap hat that is all red flannel on the top. So I fingers crossed anyway. I'm excited about this game. It's a really, really good design. We've done a ton of development on it over the years, and I think it's really to a polished state. I'm excited for people to see it.
Yeah, is there a Kickstarter pre-launch page, a newsletter? Where can people go to sign up to get notified whenever it comes out?
Sure. So one of my tasks for the rest of November is to get that Kickstarter page going so we can start collecting follows for that. But in the meantime, the place to go is to just jump onto our website, which you can find at left-justified.com. And then down in the footer, there's just a subscribe to our newsletter link. So subscribing there is the place to be in order to get word when Jewels for the Emperor Penguin goes live in January. Or I guess the other thing that you can do is find Kickstarter, search up any of the games that I have worked on before, and then if you follow me there, Kickstarter will send you a link anytime a creator that you follow fires up a new project.
Do you know offhand for your profile on Kickstarter, is it just Jeff Tidball, or is it?
It's just Jeff Tidball, yep.
All right. Well, Jeff, we are approaching 40 minutes, so I want to be respectful of your time. But before, I want to play a game.
Sure.
So do you want to either do Family Feud and be safe, or do you want to get potentially a little risky and do Same But Different?
I don't know how either one of those go, so hit me with whichever one you like better.
Well, we haven't done Same But Different yet on here. So
all right, here we go.
Let's try this. Because with Family Feud, we had Jason from the Champion faction get 311 points. And then I started looking at the cards and I'm like, I don't think there's very many cards that even have the possibility to hit that same number. So it's like everyone's just like trying to beat a number that's not even attainable. So with Same But Different, it's basically, it'll be two phrases and you want to kind of think of it as a Venn diagram.
Okay.
So for our safe card here, it's something that you can say at the dentist. And then the risky card is, and also while doing the walk of shame. So what would be a phrase that you can say at the dentist and while doing the walk of shame?
That I can say, or something that you can say to somebody is that you've got a little bit of something right here, I guess.
See, yeah, my mind instantly went to like, man, my jaw. Like,
yeah, no joke.
All right, let's see what else so say something that you can say at the Oscars and at a swingers party.
And at a swingers party. That's something related to awards. I don't know. Man, what do you got?
Hey, is that Jada?
that works pretty well. Or
let's
maybe
try
get
one
your
more.
wife's name out of your mouth.
All right, let's try one more. So something you can say to your personal trainer and during morning sex.
And during morning sex. Man, all of the longer, harder, faster, deeper, I think. All four of those work in any combination.
Yeah, I think mine would probably be, hold on, I got to stretch first.
Sure.
All right. Well, that works out pretty good. Yeah, it's just it's the same people that do the, what do you meme game that you can find at Walmart or whatever. They've got a bunch of like different little ones. And I saw this and I picked it up and I was like, oh, it's kind of fun.
Is that the What Do You Meme company?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just called Same But Different.
Yep.
Or Same But Different. But just some fun little prompts in here. Just something, try to be a little witty on the spot sometimes. Because I think I think actually about the time that I bought this, we got it, our group chat with some friends and stuff. And it's funny because she used to be our boss. And then we got really good, we became good friends with her and everything. And then now all three of us have left that same company and like we go camping together all the time. So it's like we just say stuff that you never think that you would ever like had said around your boss, like at all. Like it's grown into like a really good friendship. And me and her husband are so much alike that it scares my wife sometimes. And he had sent a thing and it was like, what can you say through the drive through and during sex or something? It was like just a meme floating around Facebook. And me and him was just going back and forth. So I saw that at
Sir,
Walmart and I
this
was
is
like,
a
oh,
Wendy's.
yeah. I was like, oh, I want to pay for the guy behind me. So I was like, I'm going to pick this up and we're going to take it camping with us. See what we can come up
Nice.
with. All right. Well, Jeff, I appreciate the time. I've had a blast. Is there any specific places you want to send people to? Any specific links, social medias, anything like that that hasn't already been mentioned?
Oh, the website's the best place. Track us down at left-justified.com.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey.